Today we are reviewing not one, but two luxury performance crossover SUVs. We have the Lexus UX 300h, which is a hybrid and slightly less cost than the BMW X2 M Sport series. Let's find out if the Lexus is actually a better value than the sportier, faster, and more luxurious BMW. Starting off with the BMW X2 M Sport series, coming in at the front end, you have a redesign for the 2024 year. You've got a more masculine and boxy style of the front end. You can see clearly here, you've got the lights running around the grille, and then of course the wide mouth here. It looks a lot angrier, sportier, and just masculine in general. I like the boxy look overall. And of course you've got the BMW badge with the M Sport badge right there. Overall, I really like the front end and how they've got the headlights designed with almost this crystal style. You do have dual beam LED headlights. Very nice, I like them a lot. Coming around to the side, you do have 21-inch wheels on this M Sport Series X2. And of course, you've got the big M Series red calipers right there to let everybody know that you are driving an M Sport Series. No painted side view mirrors, but you do have lane departure warning and of course, safety assistance on the mirror as well. I do really like how they've got the handles, they don't protrude out. It's very sleek. And of course, the lines running through to keep that sporty design all the way. Moving on to the back, you do have a spoiler on this SUV crossover, which is kind of surprising, but it helps with that sporty look. I really like it. And then of course, M Series badge, BMW badge. One thing that's a little interesting is this is how you open the patch. Kind of interesting. And then wide tail lights and as many exhaust tips as pistons on the BMW X2. You have 4 exhaust tips and 4 pistons. Moving on to the UX 300h, it is a lot more of a coupe design. It's very rounded, bubbly, you know, and you can really see that in the front end here. You almost can't tell it's a crossover. So you have the classic big Lexus grille. It's not really redesigned too much for the 2024 year. It's actually very similar to the prior years, and that's because Lexus likes to keep it simple and they think it works. I do like the headlights on this as well. You've got this long diffuser here, and of course, just a single LED headlight on these. But overall, the front end, it looks okay. It's a little too coupe-ish for me. I don't think it stands up too much to the BMW X2. You'll have to let me know what you think in the comments. But moving over to the wheels, because this is just the premium version, you've got 18-inch wheels, nothing too crazy going on here, but they look nice. I think they get the job done. And you do have partially painted side view mirrors, again with the lane departure warning here. And you know, you've got the orange on the bottom, black on the top. So half painted, a little bit of style points. The exterior of the UX 300h, it's not as sporty, it's not as masculine, it's more geared towards your young adults, right? It's at that price point, entry into luxury, coming in just around $37,000 for the entry, you know, so you're not getting nearly as many of the performance aspects. But what you do get that you don't get on the X2 over there is you do actually have roof rails, so you can put a box up here or whatever you need to do. Whereas on the X2, that is not an option. Moving along to the rear, the first thing that you will notice is that you have a tail light that stretches from end to end on the rear of the UX 300h, coming all the way across. Now the UX 300h does open up a little bit more standard than the counterpart X2 over here. It's got your typical button here. The Lexus logo doesn't actually do anything on this one. You actually also only have a single exhaust tip, however, you can't see it. And now that is because this is not the F Sport series. It's not an entirely fair comparison, but we're comparing them nonetheless. They are quite similar, as you'll see as we get through this. These both are hatchbacks, so you will notice that the space in the UX 300h is quite small, and really you don't gain much here. And now this is because it's a hybrid, so there is a battery in here, but you've got a little bit of storage space in here that you can utilize. There is no spare tire. However, you do get a first aid kit, so if you get hurt. Moving along to the X2, this does, like I said, it opens up with that. I think that's pretty neat. I like how that does. You know, you don't have a weird extra button or electronic button or anything like that, but you'll notice that the X2 has much more cargo space right off the bat. Now we're gonna go ahead and shove Uncle Steve into the rear of the UX 300H. You'll notice there's not a whole lot of space there. It's in his current driving position. Now this is supposed to be an SUV crossover, but I don't think so.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Steve is cramped. Now, moving along to the X2, when we put Steve in the back, you'll notice he actually has much more space because the X2 has actually not only grown in size for the 2024 year, but overall, it just has bigger inner dimensions. So Steve is much more comfortable in the back seat. Steve, do you like that a lot more?
Oh my, yeah. So much better.
So much better. All right, now moving on to the interior of the Lexus UX 300H. The doors aren't too heavy like that. You'll notice it's a pretty plain door panel. You do get a little bit of accent going on here, contrast with the brown arm padding here, but on the door panel, it's all very basic. You've got your side view mirror controls, lock unlock, and one touch window operation with the child lock. All right, now the seats are something that I actually really love on the UX 300H. You've got nice stitching on the sides done here, and of course, because this is a Lexus, you get heated and ventilated seats. So you've got nice perforation in here. I like it. I like the brown. It's my type of style. Hopping in though, along the dash, you see like it's almost a fiber panel here. What's nice about that is it may not fade in the summertime, but of course you've got the brown stitching running through as well. Now this does really bring me back to the old Toyotas and not so much Lexuses, but the Toyotas, especially the Prius. It has that cockpit feeling. It's all like kind of built out at you. It just reminds me a ton of a Prius. But on the right hand side here, one thing that I do love is that you have manual air controls. That's absolutely fantastic. Not having to dig through the infotainment screen to find those is great. One thing I've always loved about Lexus is they've got the power oscillating steering wheel. Makes it very easy to adjust how you want. Not only can you bring it forward towards you, you can bring it up and down. You get it situated however you like. Up here on this knob, or well, actually button, is your traction control. That's kind of interesting. And then on the right-hand side here, you have your drive mode selector. So top is sport, bottom is eco, and if you press it, it goes into normal. To the left of the steering wheel here, you've got your brightness for your digital gauge cluster, odometer. Below here, you've got your gas cap release button, your trunk release button, your hood release lever, and then very standard steering stalks, nothing to talk about there. And of course, all of your driving safety features and your multimedia controls on the steering wheel. Moving over to the center, you do have 3 home link buttons on your rear view mirror. Absolutely fantastic, makes it nice and easy. Now this is a bonus here. You do have a sunroof that actually functions, and SOS button, your door lights, and then also this one moves your sunroof up, and then this one moves it back. So a little bit different than that normal one button operation, but hey, I guess that's nice. Moving on beyond the steering wheel, you do have a 12.3 inch digital gauge cluster that has all the information that you could possibly need right there on it. And then of course above that, you actually have a heads up display as well, which I'm a huge fan of. Absolutely love that when cars have that. And the infotainment screen is a 12.3 inch infotainment screen as well. It's very responsive, but it is just running the basic Toyota software, which is up to date, but there's not a whole lot there to really get more out of it. You do have to attach Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which is wireless on this vehicle. Below that, like I said, you do have your physical buttons for your heating and air, and you have 2 USB-C ports and a wireless charging pad for your phone, 2 decently sized cup holders, gear selector, EV mode, auto hold, and like I said, you do have heated and ventilated seats as well as a heating steering wheel for your front 2 seats. A nice contrasted middle armrest with another USB type A port, 12-volt outlet, and ample storage space as well. All right, moving on to the rear, it's all very standard and basic. You don't get any HVAC controls, but each passenger does get a vent, and as well as 2 USB type C ports. The driver's seat does not have a kangaroo pouch, but the passenger does. That's about all there is back here. I will tell you though, if you have a child and you need to get a car seat in and out of here, it's going to be difficult. Now moving on to the interior of the BMW X2, when you open up the door, nice and easy operation, and you can see right away you have beautiful contrasting and different styling going on all over the place. From the red here to the gray stitching, this aluminum textured plating, aluminum speaker grille, and the shiny metallic plastic door handle. Absolutely great. I love how this door looks. It just looks phenomenal. Very basic controls, nothing really to write home about. You've got your button to fold your mirrors in, your mirror control, and your 4 one-touch window operations, as well as your memory seat functions and lock and unlock. And then down here, you also have a button to open up the hatch. Now, one thing I always love about BMWs, especially the M series, is their stylization. These seats just look absolutely phenomenal. Very sporty. At the top here, you have the M series badging and just the red contrast with the black. They look absolutely great. And then down here, as well as having 12-point auto adjustment control, you do have your knee rest or support here. Absolutely great. It actually does make a big difference. If you've never used one, strongly suggest it. Now, continuing on the interior of the car, again, you've got this nice aluminum textured plating running through the interior dash. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It adds a lot of character to the interior of the car. And again, another different texture above it. Now, this is a little more padded. It's a vinyl, but it feels durable, especially with the gray stitching running through. Looks great. Starting off to the left of the steering wheel, you do have a button to change the brightness of your heads-up display, auto lights, or off. And then one thing that you don't have on the BMW that we had on the Lexus. Now remember, the BMW does cost more, but you've only got a manual adjustment and it only goes up and down. So if you're one of those people that need to really move around the steering wheel, you're out of options here. Now the steering wheel itself, it's all very standard. On the left-hand side here, you've got your cruise control settings, your mode settings, and that's about it. Plus and minus for volume. And then over on the right-hand side here, it's more of your multimedia functions, whether it's for voice assistant, music, answering the phone, what have you. Now, because this is an M series, you do have the boost paddle. Those are a ton of fun. Absolutely love them. As well as the paddle shifters. So they're paddle shifters and a boost paddle. Now, the steering wheel itself is great. I mean, the BMW M Sport steering wheels are always fantastic. It feels great. It's got that beautiful design with the red and blue stitching and, of course, the red stripe at the top. Really like the M Sport steering wheels. But at the front here, you have another heads-up display. Absolutely great. I'm a huge fan of those, like I said. And then this massive connected dual 12.3-inch screen here. So you've got your digital gauge cluster and your infotainment screen. Now this does have BMW's newest software on it. So you've got tons of different things that you can control in there. However, BMW loses a huge point here because in order to change anything, whether it's air or your heated seat, you have to do it through the touchscreen. You have very minimal physical buttons in here, and I think that is a drag. The last thing you want to be doing when you're driving is fishing through menus. Moving on above the infotainment screen, you do have 3 home link buttons on your rear view mirror here. Above that, you've got your dome lights, your SOS button, and the shade for your panoramic roof. Now, this is not a sunroof, this is just a panoramic roof. Moving on below the infotainment center, you do have a large wireless charging pad for your phone, as well as the flap here to hold your phone in place when you activate that boost mode and you take off quick. 2 relatively well-sized cup holders, 2 USB Type-C ports, and a 12-volt outlet in your cigarette lighter style. Now, this does have an extremely shallow center console, so because of that, they have this large storage space below here, which is also somewhat shallow, but you can store some pens and things like that in there. Above that, in your control center here, you've got your gear selector, your mode selector, adaptive cruise control selector, and your auto hold button for stopping, volume selector, and track seeker. And then this is the incredibly small center console that I was mentioning. You cannot put anything in there. I think it's good for like 3 pens. But the UX300H does have more practicality. You have more options, it's easier to use, you've got heated and ventilated seats. And for one, if I want to turn on my heated seat in this car, I've got to literally go to the seat control menu on the infotainment center just to turn that on. I think that's a huge hassle and a complete waste of time. Just give me a button. Moving on to the rear, I can already tell you versus being in the UX, this is way more spacious. It's much more comfortable. I've got tons of room here. You saw Uncle Steve had tons more of room, but you do get 2 USB Type-C ports, and you know, each passenger has a vent. And then there's this, that's not a storage space, so don't put anything there. It's gonna fall right out. But both seats here do have a pocket that you can utilize, as well as they both have the pull down with the cup holder. Overall, this feels much better. And to bring it back to what we were talking about there with the car seats, you're gonna have a much easier time in this one, not only getting the car seat in and out, but dealing with your child in the car seat. In that one, it's gonna be much, much more difficult. All right, so now because both of these do have power gates on the rear, we are gonna go ahead and test them and see if it'll chop off you or your kid's finger. So starting off with the 300, let's see how she does. Oh, the Lexus is as safe as it gets. It felt that there and it stopped immediately. There was no chance it was gonna harm this. Moving on to the X2, because it does also have a power gate, let's see if the BMW is safer or just as safe as the Lexus. Ooh, that one will do a little bit more damage. It's definitely not taking off a finger, but you can see that it made a good bit of impact there. All right, now I'm behind the wheel of the BMW X2 M35i, and I can tell you already, it drives like a BMW. It's comfortable. I feel extremely comfortable. The view, it's okay. You don't have the best view ever, in my opinion, in this. The back window, of course, is small because it's a hatchback. The front visibility is absolutely fantastic, but because of these large, sporty seats, looking through the back mirror or back windows, it's not very easy either. But as far as noise goes, I'm not getting any wind noise or road noise. It's all just engine and exhaust noise, which is what I like to hear. That's what I want to hear, right? The steering wheel itself, very soft leather, very comfortable, nice and thick. I really like it. It feels good. My fingers aren't touching my palms, so that's great. The acceleration, very fast. You know, it may not be the quickest crossover that you'll ever get in, but it's a zippy little car for sure. Just for fun, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the boost pedal because I just love doing that. And let's see how she actually accelerates. Sounds absolutely fantastic, and that was probably like a 6 second or so, 0 to 60. Maybe later we'll get some more accurate numbers. But for now, let's go ahead and get Uncle Steve in the driver's seat and see how he feels about it and go over the powertrain.
So for this BMW, for this year, the BMW X2, they have 2 models, 1 powertrain option, but however, they have 2 different power output. The X-Drive 28i and the M35i have a 2.0 inline-4 turbocharged engine with a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. For the M35i, it produces 312 horsepower and 295 foot-pound of torque. 0 to 60 supposedly in 5.2 seconds. And then for the X-Drive 28i, it produces 241 horsepower and 295 foot-pound of torque, which is same torque number as the M35i. The 0 to 60 is a little bit slower, 6.2 seconds. For the fuel economy, M35i has 26 miles per gallon, and for the 28i, it has 28 miles per gallon. So it's not big of a difference.
Now, as far as pricing goes for the BMW X2 series, like Steve mentioned, you have 2 different trim options. The X-Drive 28i starts out at $42,995. Now, what we're driving today is the M35i X-Drive. That starts out at $52,395. However, the model that we are driving with the options that we have on it, it comes out the door at $60,995.
For the driving impression, BMW always drive very nice, no matter what model it is. They always handle like amazing, and the steering wheel always feel like luxury and sporty. Now I'm in power mode, sport mode. Is quite fast and very smooth engine. For the transmission, actually shift really nicely, even though with dual clutch. As far as I know, some dual clutch transmission, when they shift, they jerk a lot. So for this, BMW actually is really nice. For the noise inside the car actually is almost zero, except you can hear the exhaust sounds. The exhaust sound actually is not that loud as well compared to the X1 that we did not long ago. And it doesn't have the exhaust active valve for this X2. For the comfort, it's really comfortable, very sporty for this BMW seat. You can feel it's a bucket seat, but not as tight as like a high performance car. And the space is actually good. There's a lot of room, except the steering wheel is not fully adjusted, unlike the Lexus. Overall, this BMW drive very, very nice. And I cannot wait until try the UX 300H to see how is the difference.
All right, now I'm behind the wheel of the Lexus UX 300H. And what I can tell you right from the start is that the steering wheel is not quite as great. BMW's got the win there because this steering wheel is much thinner. I can touch my palms with my fingers when I wrap my hands around the steering wheel. I'm not really a big fan of that, but it is very soft leather. It feels great in that aspect. The seat itself is pretty comfortable once you get it situated how you like it. I will say that mostly because of the added knee support that the BMW has, that it is a little bit more comfortable. But you know what? The Lexus takes the cake anyways because you do have ventilated seats on it, and that is just a game changer in the summer. You can't beat it. And the Lexus is actually cheaper. So why BMW doesn't have that beats me. But overall, you know, aside from the steering wheel, I actually think this is quite a comfortable position and drive. The visibility is also better than on the BMW. You've got a bigger windshield. You've got a better visibility through the rear window. The visibility out the back windows is about the same as the BMW, but the BMW does have bigger side view mirrors. You can't see quite as much in these as you can on the BMW, but overall, the visibility, I would say, the Lexus is better. One thing that I've always loved Lexus for is the sound deadening, and this one is no different. It's absolutely quiet. I can barely hear any wind noise at all. Actually, I don't think I am hearing any. I think I'm hearing ever so slightly a little bit of road noise just because of these very thin tires. They don't have a lot of sidewall to them, maybe like an inch or so. And with that being said, you just get a little bit of road noise, but you can't feel the road, really. The Lexus just rides incredibly smooth, and I think Lexus is pretty well known for that. I'm not a fan of the cockpit style that Lexus and Toyota has here, but what I will say is things are easily accessible. If I want to change the air, it's much easier. If I want to change my heated or cooled seats, it's all right here. I'm not fishing through this menu. I want to go on the touchscreen as little as possible. So I think accessibility and convenience factors, again, Lexus takes the cake here. It's all just so much easier to get what you want. Overall though, the interior and the drive feel, I like it a lot. Other than the steering wheel, I think that it could be a little bit thicker, a little bit meatier, but the acceleration is actually fine for an SUV crossover. And you know, now that I'm going quite a bit faster, I'm like 55 miles per hour, I'm getting a lot more road noise though. That is something to be concerned with. If you went through all the trouble to get your kid in the back seat and they're finally asleep, you might get upset when they wake up. Well, let's go ahead and get Uncle Steve in the driver's seat and see what he thinks of the UX 300H and to tell us a little bit about the drivetrain.
I'll let Uncle Steve talk about this 2025 Lexus UX 300H powertrain. So they have 4 different models: the base, premium, F Sport design, F Sport handling. The F Sport design basically is just the exterior trim a little bit different than the premium and the base, and also interior like bucket seat. And then for the F Sport handling is they have upgraded suspensions, and they come with a Sport Plus mode. However, it's not faster or extra horsepower. For the all 4 model, they have the same engine, new powertrain for the 2025, which is 2.0 liter inline 4 hybrid engine, produce 196 horsepower, and 139 foot-pound of torque. For the drivetrain, it's optional for each model, either the front-wheel drive or the four-wheel or the all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive basically just put the electric motor in the back. For the transmission, like always, most of the time, 90% of the time, with hybrid, you will get the CVT transmission. For Toyota, CVT hybrid transmission is actually quite reliable, which you can tell all these cab driver driving the Prius, they last 200,000 miles. And for the fuel economy, actually it's double than the BMW M35i, almost double. It's 43 miles per gallon combined. The driving impression is not as good as the BMW, it's not as sporty as the BMW. However, they have F Sport handling trim or model for this Lexus, so it could be different. But the power is about the same. Same means the same as other model in the Lexus, but compared to the BMW, it's just not as fast as the BMW. 0 to 60 for this UX is 8 seconds. It's almost 2 seconds slower than the BMW. And then for the interior, it's actually not. I don't feel like this is a luxury. It feels like it's cheaply made. But the base price is $37,000, so I'm not gonna complain about if I pay $37,000. It's still Lexus quality. One thing I really don't like is the steering wheel. When I adjust it, I cannot go all the way up. Even if I go all the way up, the top of the steering wheel is still kind of blocking the gauge cluster, like a little bit.
H does have 4 trim models, like Steve mentioned. The 300H comes in at $37,490. The 300H Premium, which is what we're driving today, comes in at $40,690. The F Sport comes in at $41,440, and the F Sport Handling comes in at $45,955. So all packages are cheaper than the current trim that we have of the BMW. In conclusion, between the 2024 BMW X2 M35i and the 2025 Lexus UX 300H, honestly, I'm gonna have to overall give it to the Lexus, because the Lexus has more creature comforts and it's more accessible while you're driving, right? And the price is just right there. However, I must say, Uncle Steve's gonna have some big kids. I can't imagine how big those kids are gonna be. So if you have a family, the BMW is just much more practical, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Yeah, and the need for speed.
And the need for speed, absolutely. You don't get the performance out of here, but you know what? The hybrid's gonna get you a lot further for a lot cheaper. I will say that much. What do you think, Steve? Which one do you think takes the cake here?
Well, see, now I have a family, so I'll take the BMW.
Yeah, there you go. Steve wants to get his kids places and he wants to get them there fast. Well, let us know in the comments what you think and which one you would pick. Would you pay $37,000 for the Lexus, or would you rather pay $60,000 for the BMW? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.